Hi chaps, SimOP here from Beard, Biceps and Batchat. Today we're going to do a review of the Vengenance T25. So, just a little bit about when I'm doing the review for this tank. I was going to get the tank and show you some gameplay, but I've had a little think about it, and I'd prefer to go over the sort of hard stats of the tank, a little bit of theory craft, how I think the tank will play. If I show you gameplay, obviously being a YouTuber, I'm going to show you gameplay where it's a very good game, and for the price of 12,200 gold, I don't really want to show you a game where I do very well in it. You think this tank is amazing, go out and spend 12,200 gold. I'd rather you sort of make your own mind up from just seeing the stats of the tank, the sort of theory craft on how it plays, how it compares to other tier 8 American premiums, and sort of make your mind up from that. I'm sure there'll be plenty of gameplay out there from a couple of other YouTubers as well, so this is going to be my sort of take on it, which is going to be fairly objective and just as unsubjective as possible. So the first thing about this tank is the paint job. All black, American flag on the front. But that's not the best bit. The best bit is this skull on the back. Very nice. Love the paint job on this tank. It looks absolutely phenomenal. What I'm going to do with this review as well is do a comparison against another very prominent tier 8 American medium in the Super Pershing. So this tank itself is a console exclusive in the T25, well, in the Vengeance T25, but this is out on World of Tanks PC as the, if I'm right, it's on the modules, that's right, T25 Pilot 1. So the first thing I want to talk about when I'm looking at this tank is actually the gun. So this is a 90mm gun that they've got on the Super Pershing. So when we're looking at the gun itself actually has, we move over to ammunition. For its normal rounds, it's got 192mm of pen, 240 damage. The DPM works out 1846 per minute. Now this is slightly better. Look at that ammo rack, bloody hell. It's got better DPM than the Pershing. The APCR rounds, the penetration works out at 243. Now compared to the Super Pershing, which has 268 pen on its APCR rounds, the penetration is actually a little bit lacking on this tank, so you're going to struggle trying to pen definitely tier 10s frontally and some heavy tier 9s frontally. It's going to be a little bit of a pain to pen them, so you have to be a little bit cleverer and aim for weak spots or go flanking shots, whereas with the Super Pershing you don't have to. If you're in a tier 10 game and you're struggling, you're playing against a tier 10 frontally, you can just press X, load APCR, and you're likely to go through the lower glacis without worrying too much. So the Vengeance T25 pen isn't great in higher tier games. Now the other thing we have is the ammo loadout for this tank. This tank actually loads 50 rounds, whereas the Super Pershing has 50 rounds. Because it's shooting quite a lot, it's got a real time 7.80, you're actually going to go through quite a lot of rounds. If you're having a really big game where you're carrying very hard, you may be wondering where the rest of your rounds are, so that can potentially be a little bit of a problem. It shouldn't be, but it just could be. So the gun handling on this tank is absolutely, let me just move over to that, there we go, excellent on the Vengeance T25. So you actually have 2-second aim times. Compare that to the Super Pershing, which has 2.30 seconds aim time, so it's 0.30 seconds better than the Super Pershing. The accuracy on this gun is 0.36 at 100 meters dispersion. It's not great, it's on par with where the Super Pershing at, which is at sort of 0.38, but with the 2-second aim time, it's not too bad, and you don't feel like you suffer from the 0.36 accuracy too much. Obviously it's not a Grill 15 with 0.27 accuracy, but it's still fairly good accuracy. Now the other thing to note, same as the Super Pershing and pretty much every other tier 8 American premium medium tank, is that this tank has 10 degrees of gun depression. you're gonna see where that comes into play when we talk about the armour a little bit and talk about my sort of theory craft behind the playstyle. So just bear in mind, 10 degrees of gun depression, fairly good for a medium tank, but you'll see where it comes into play and where it matters. So the other thing I want to talk about on this tank is the mobility. So what you're going to see initially is a power to weight ratio of 14.23. That isn't too great, and then you're going to see the top forward speed of 55 kilometers per hour, which is very, very good for a tier 8 medium, similar to sort of what you'd see in a tier 9 Russian medium, T25 in the Centurion Action X, which is a tier 10 British medium, also fairly similar to what you can see in the Russian tier 10 mediums, OBJ140, T62A. So we've got a very, very good top speed, really good reverse speed of 20 kilometers per hour, but you're probably going to be a little bit worried just seeing that power to weight ratio. Now that's actually not as bad as you think in practice. So we can see the stats War Game revealed to us here about the engine, but this actually has very, very good hidden stats. Its terrain resistance on soft, medium or hard ground are very, very good. So this actually makes for a tank that can accelerate quite quickly and is fairly mobile, fairly agile as well. So that 14.23 power to weight ratio isn't actually too much of a hindrance at all. So again, just to the point we're up to now, just to draw a comparison to the Super Pershing, this tank has better speed, better mobility, better DPM and better gun handling. So it all sounds quite good. Now this is where it all goes a little bit naughty and starts getting a little bit interesting. We have the armour of the tank. It goes down here, downhill here. So the front of the armour, it's 71 to 90 millimeters. It's actually 76 millimeters on the hull on the front. Now if you were to angle this tank at the most perfect angle possible in game against another tank, sort of around here, something like that, that front armour is only 170 mils effective. So that is something to be very, very aware of when you're playing this tank. The other problem we have with this tank is the side armour. It says 31 to 50 mil. So the front of the side armour is actually 50 millimeters up to about halfway point, 50 millimeters, so you can side scrape, it's not too bad. The backside of the side armour, sorry, is 30 millimeters. So if this tank is side scraping you like so, aim for the back, you're going to overmatch it, you are going to go through the back. And if we have a quick look at the modules, what is at the back? That is right, that is the engine. So side scraping, if at all possible, you really need to protect the back half of your side armour in case that engine catches fire and they start just throwing shots into that. It's not going to be a major flaw of the tank, just something to be aware of with your positioning as you're playing the tank. Now if we start looking at the positive of the tanks, we have the actual turret of the tank. So the turret of the tank itself has a couple of interesting features on it. Firstly, the gun mantlet is 200 millimeters thick effective at its weakest point, all the way up to 400 millimeters at the strongest point at the gun mantlet. So the gun mantlet, if you're unsure, is the bit that is yellow, orange and red, very red. The gun mantlet on this tank is very large, so you need to make sure you're utilising that. Now that strength, along with the 10 degrees of gun depression, is going to give you a little bit of an idea of how I think this tank should be played. But it's also important to note your cupolas are about 50 mil of armour on them. They're not overly prominent or large, but they're not overly difficult to hit either. As you can see, there's a very small gap in between them. If they're aiming for one of the cupolas, you're wiggling your turret, they're still likely to hit them. So that tells you don't want to play as a frontline tank, playing hold down, sort of ridgeline warrior one-on-one at the front of the advance, because your cupolas are very easy to hit. Now the mantlet itself is fine versus anything up to sort of tier 8. tier 9 and 10 onwards are going to start causing you problems and actually can go through your gun mantlet without struggling too much. There will be a bit of a struggle, but it won't be too much. So the HP on this tank ends up working out about 1450, and that's about average for a tier 8 American premium medium tank. View range 390, again that's average what we'd expect it to be. One of the interesting things is the fire chance on the engine. So this engine has a 20% chance of catching fire. That coupled with 30 mils of backside armour if you are side scraping means do not leave that automatic fire extinguisher at home. There's been a lot of tanks I run, I don't run fire extinguishers. If I got this tank, I would run the fire extinguisher. You just need it. You don't want to sort of risk it taking a shot to the engine. That's a very, very high chance of catching fire. There isn't much protection around the engine. If you side scrape, people are going to be putting shots into the engine. So my sort of theory on how I feel this tank is going to play is it's going to work out as a mid-range support tank using ridges. It's going to be a similar sort of play style to if you ever played the gone up the British line to the Centurion Action X. You're going to be a support ridgeline warrior, so you don't want to be in the front lines doing ridgeline play. You want to be behind your heavies, behind your more aggressive mediums, shooting without sort of being noticed is the best way to describe it. And I feel that's the best way to take advantage of your 10 degrees of gun depression as well as your gun mantlet. You want to be putting shots in, throwing shots into engagement points without you being the focus of enemy return fire as much as possible. So because of a couple of attributes of this tank, which is, you know, poor armor unless it's a gun mantlet, I would say this tank has not a high skill level, but this isn't for your newer players. They're not going to see as much success. If they were to buy, for example, the Super Persian, the T25 Mod 1, which is the Tier 8 Russian medium, or even the Type 59, I would say there's a medium or your more advanced player is going to have a lot more luck with this tank. They're going to be able to get in positions to take advantage of that great DPM, take advantage of the great gun handling on this tank, and I feel they'll have a little bit more success with it. Priced at 12,200 gold on the first package, I would say that is a little bit steep. If we have a quick look at the tech tree on American Breed, by the way, the new update we've just had, 3.7, garage looks great, tech trees all look great, really impressed at WG, get my words out, but I'll probably do a little review on that a little later on. So as you can see here, the T34 12,000, I don't particularly rate that tank. 7,200, it's quite steep, so it'd be worthwhile seeing what the, I suppose, just base bundle looks like on the Vengenance T25. Then it really could be worth purchasing. Being a tier 8 premium, it obviously gets the credit modifiers. I believe it's about 1.5, similar to what the Type 59 gets, the Mudline gets, the Farthline gets, so it's going to be very good for making money. I'll be very interested to hear your thoughts and your theories on how this tank will play. Do you think you can play it? A new player can play it quite well and have very good results from it? Let me know in the comment section below, chaps. I'll catch you next time. The next video should be a guest replay from a chap called Mark Hicks with a very good replay in his Centurion Action X. If you're liking the content, guys, please like and subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you next time, chaps.